The foam pack was warm against Zainab Ajayi's palm, like it still believed in tomorrow. She stood under the pedestrian bridge at Ozumbambadu, where the morning traffic breathed out heat and impatience. A Danfo conductor was already shouting destinations with a cracked voice. A man selling sachet water slapped his cooler lid like a drum. Everything in Lagos moved fast, except Zainab. Because the only thing she had left was inside that pack. Not last money. Not last chance. Actual last food. Rice and stew with 2 small pieces of fried plantain. The kind she bought with her transport change because she didn't trust herself to go into the day on an empty stomach. Not today. Not the day of her interview at Adebayo Holdings, the kind of place people mention with lowered voices, like it was a government office or a church. Zainab tightened her fingers around the pack and checked the time on her phone again. 7:26 a.m. If she missed the 8:30 slot, it would be over. They wouldn't call twice. They wouldn't ask why. Lagos didn't ask why. A bus splashed through a shallow puddle, spraying the curb. Zainab shifted back and almost stepped on a man's foot. He didn't react. She looked down. The man sat on a flattened carton close to the pillar, half hidden behind the movement of legs and bags. Not old. Not young. Just worn out in a way that made you forget to guess his age. His shirt was the color of dust. One sleeve had lost its shape. His slippers were mismatched. But it was his face that stopped her. His eyes were open, fixed on nothing. Like someone who had decided blinking was extra work. A woman walked past him, talking on Bluetooth, her wig shining like it had its own light source. A schoolboy stepped around him without looking. Someone's elbow brushed his shoulder and he swayed slightly, then steadied himself with slow hands. Zainab hesitated. In Lagos, hesitation could be expensive. It could be dangerous. It could be foolish. Her mother's voice lived in her head with all the warnings she never obeyed fully. Don't stop for strange people. Don't make yourself a helper in public. Your kindness must have sense. Zainab adjusted the strap of her small handbag and tried to face the road again. Then the man moved. Not a normal shift. Not the small discomfort of sitting too long. He folded forward like his body had suddenly remembered it was heavy. His forehead came down toward his knees. One hand pressed against his stomach, not dramatic, just instinctive, like a person trying to hold himself together. A dry sound left his throat. Not a groan. Not a cry. Something quieter. Something ashamed. Zainab's feet took a step before her head agreed. "Sir," she said, low, careful, as if speaking too loudly could embarrass him. "Are you okay?" He didn't answer. Zainab glanced around. People were everywhere, but everybody was minding their own urgency. A man in a white shirt and tie kept walking while scrolling. A vendor argued with a customer. A young woman laughed at something on her phone, her nails clicking the screen. Zainab swallowed. Her mouth was already dry and she hadn't eaten. "Sir," she tried again. "Should I call someone for you?" The man slowly raised his head. His eyes met hers. There was no begging in them. No performance. Just a tired kind of alertness, like he had been trained not to show weakness, but his body had betrayed his training. "I'm fine," he said. His voice was not what she expected. It was calm. Educated. Even the accent was controlled, not the street corner roughness people assumed when they saw poverty. Zainab blinked, thrown off balance. "You don't look fine," she said. He gave a small smile that didn't reach his eyes. "I've looked worse." Zainab's grip tightened on her foam pack. The smell of stew rose from it, bold and unforgiving. Her stomach responded immediately, a slow cramp of need. She could walk away. She should. She had an interview. She had a single blouse inside her bag, ironed at night with a neighbor's pressing iron because their own had stopped working last week. She had borrowed powder from her younger cousin to reduce the shine on her face. She had planned every minute. But the man's eyes followed the pack for half a second before he looked away, as if he refused to be caught looking hungry. That small movement, so quick, so human, hit her harder than begging would have. Zainab crouched slowly beside him. "Have you eaten today?" she asked. His jaw shifted. "It's not your problem." She nodded like she accepted that, then opened the foam pack anyway. The steam kissed her face. The rice looked too good, too bright for the gray morning under the bridge. 2 plantain slices sat on top like decoration, as if food could still be pretty. The man's nostrils flared once. He looked away again. Zainab held the pack out. "Take," she said. He didn't move. Zainab felt heat rise in her chest, not anger. Fear. The fear of being seen. The fear of being stopped. The fear of doing something good and then paying for it with the one thing she couldn't afford to lose: time. "I have an interview," she said quickly, as if she needed to justify her kindness before the world accused her of stupidity. "I'm late already. I can't do much." "I didn't ask you to," the man said. His tone wasn't rude, but it was proud. Zainab exhaled through her nose. "Then don't ask. Just take." The man looked at her again. This time longer. Up close, Zainab noticed things that didn't match his clothes. His hands were clean, nails trimmed. There was a faint line on his ring finger like a ring had lived there for years. And his posture, even sitting on a carton, carried a habit of authority. He finally reached for the pack, slow and careful, like he didn't want to look desperate. Zainab shifted back a little, giving him space. She kept her eyes on the road, on the buses, on the moving world that didn't have time for moments like this. The man took a bite. He paused mid-chew as if his body was surprised. Like it had been too long since it tasted something warm. Zainab's phone vibrated in her hand. A call. She glanced at the screen and her breath caught. Unknown number. Her chest tightened. Adebayo Holdings sometimes used different lines. If she missed it, if it was them. She stood up quickly. "Sorry." She stepped away, answering on the first ring. "Hello." A woman's voice, sharp and professional. "Zainab Ajayi?" "Yes. This is Human Resources, Adebayo Holdings. Your interview slot remains 8:30. You were instructed to arrive 30 minutes early for documentation." "I'm on my way," Zainab said, too fast. "I'm close." A small pause, like the woman was deciding how much patience Zainab deserved. Be aware that late arrival reflects on professionalism. "I understand," Zainab said. "I'm coming." The call ended. Zainab stared at her phone for half a second, feeling the panic spread through her like heat. She looked back at the man. He was holding the pack with 2 hands now, eating steadily, not greedily. Zainab's stomach twisted, not just from hunger, from the reality of what she had done. She had given away her last food. There was no backup. No extra snack in her bag. No money to buy another. The transport she had was counted. Even the data on her phone was measured. She told herself it was only food. She could survive a few hours. People did worse every day. Still, her body didn't believe her courage. Zainab grabbed her bag strap. "Sir," she said, already stepping back into motion. I hope you feel better." The man swallowed, then looked up at her again. "What's your name?" Zainab hesitated. Names could be hooks. Names could be trouble. "Zainab," she said. He nodded once, as if he was filing it away. "Thank you, Zainab." She started to turn. Then she heard it. A voice behind her, loud enough to cut through the city noise. "There you are." Zainab froze. A woman in a fitted blazer approached with 2 security men trailing her like shadows. She looked like someone who belonged in glass buildings, not under bridges. Her face was tight with urgency, but her eyes were scanning like she was searching for something specific. Her gaze landed on Zainab first, then flicked to the man on the carton, then back to Zainab. Recognition flashed across the woman's face, brief, unsettling. "Madam, are you?" Zainab began, unsure. The woman ignored the question and stepped closer, lowering her voice as if they were conspirators. "Young lady," she said, "where did you get that man's attention?" Zainab's heart stumbled. He looked hungry. I gave him food." The woman's lips parted slightly. One of the security men shifted his weight, eyes now locked on the man like he was a problem that needed containing. The man on the carton didn't look up. He kept eating, calm as a person who had no reason to rush. The woman's voice tightened. "Do you know who he is?" Zainab's mouth went dry. Because the way the woman asked it wasn't curiosity. It was fear, carefully dressed in professionalism. And before Zainab could answer, the man wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, stood up with a slow steadiness, and turned toward them. He looked at the woman, then at the security men. And then, with that same controlled voice, he said, "Tell them I'm ready." Zainab felt the air shift, like the world had moved one step sideways. The woman's eyes flicked back to Zainab, and she spoke like she had just realized something dangerous had happened. "Zainab," she said quietly, "you need to come with us." The security men stepped forward. Zainab's legs went cold. That was when the suited woman said, "Zainab, you need to come with us," and the security men stepped closer. What would you do if your simple act of kindness suddenly put you in the middle of powerful people's business? If you want to stay with this story, make sure you're a subscriber, because what happens after she enters that SUV changes everything. Zainab didn't move at first. Not because she was stubborn, but because her body couldn't decide whether this was danger or embarrassment. Under the bridge, everything felt louder, the engines, the shouting, even her own breathing. The woman in the blazer held out a slim hand, palm up, not quite touching Zainab, but claiming authority over the space between them. "Come," she repeated, softer this time. "Please." Zainab's eyes darted to the two security men. They weren't rough-looking. They wore neat black suits and earpieces, the kind you saw at hotel entrances and political events. But their faces were blank in a way that made Zainab's stomach tighten. They weren't here to argue. They were here to move things. Zainab turned to the man she had fed. He stood fully upright now. The tired bend in his back was gone. His shoulders were square. His eyes were steady, scanning the road like someone used to reading situations. He looked at Zainab once, just once, and there was something in that look that felt like an apology he couldn't say out loud. "Sir," Zainab whispered, "what is going on?" The woman answered before he could. "My name is Mrs. Kudarat Falad. I work with him." Zainab frowned. "Work with him how?" Kudarat's jaw flexed. She seemed to choose her words carefully, like anything too clear could cause an explosion right there under the bridge. "He's not supposed to be here alone." Zainab looked back at the man. "Alone?" He gave a faint, tired smile. "I needed air." It was such a small sentence. And yet, the way Kudarat's eyes tightened told Zainab it wasn't allowed. Zainab's phone buzzed again, this time a message from her cousin. "Auntie Saad say you no go miss that interview, oh, God day." Zainab almost laughed from the pressure in her chest. "I have an interview," she said, trying to keep her voice calm. "At 8:30. I'm all ready." Kudarat stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Which company?" Zainab hesitated, then said it anyway. "Adebayo Holdings." The effect was immediate. Kudarat's eyes widened just slightly, then she recovered so fast it was almost invisible. One of the security men glanced at the other. Zainab noticed. Her throat went tight. What's wrong?" The man she fed finally spoke, his voice quiet but firm. "Zainab, you're not in trouble." "Then why are they looking at me like this?" Zainab snapped, then regretted it. She wasn't used to talking like that to anyone, but fear had a way of borrowing your tongue. Kudarat raised her hands in a calming gesture. "Nobody is accusing you. But you can't just walk away right now." Zainab took a step back. "Watch me." The two security men shifted again, not blocking her, but positioning themselves with the smoothness of trained people. Zainab's heart started to pound hard. She clutched her handbag tighter. She imagined headlines in her mind that didn't exist. "Young woman kidnapped under bridge." She imagined her mother crying, her father blaming her for being too soft. Kudarat saw the fear on her face and her expression changed. For the first time, the professionalism slipped, revealing something human, concern, even guilt. "Listen," Kudarat said quickly. "You helped him. You didn't do anything wrong. But if you leave now and something happens, it will become a bigger issue. Just come with us to the car. 2 minutes. You can still go for your interview." Zainab's eyes stayed on the man. 2 minutes. He nodded slowly. 2 minutes. His tone wasn't persuasive. It was almost respectful. That was what convinced her more than the suits. Zainab let out a tight breath. 2 minutes. Cuterat motioned toward a black SUV parked further down the road, close enough to be visible but far enough to keep attention away. The security men walked on either side, not touching Zainab, but guiding her like the current of a river. As they approached, Zainab noticed details. The SUV wasn't an ordinary one. The windows were deeply tinted. The tires were thick. A driver in a crisp white shirt stepped out and opened the back door before anyone asked. Zainab paused. "Madam, who is he?" Cuterat didn't answer immediately. She glanced at the man, waiting. He stepped closer, and the morning light caught his face fully for the first time. Up close, Zainab saw what hunger and dust had hidden, a small scar near his temple, neat. A gold wristwatch, expensive, but scratched, as if he wore it daily and didn't care how it looked. A quiet confidence that didn't match the carton he had been sitting on. He met her eyes. "My name is Tund Adebayo," he said. Zainab's mouth opened, then closed again. The name hit her like sudden rain. Not because she knew him personally, but because Lagos knew that name. Adebayo Holdings, one of the city's biggest conglomerates. Construction, logistics, real estate, ports. The kind of company whose signboard could intimidate you from the roadside. Zainab's voice came out thin. "Adebayo, as in the company?" Tun didn't smile this time. "Yes." Her stomach dropped. She looked at Cuterat, who looked away. Zainab took a slow step back, as if distance could undo the last 10 minutes. "So, sir, I'm not a madman," he said quietly, almost reading her fear. "And I'm not here to trap you. I left without my driver." "Without?" He glanced at Cuterat. "Without permission." Cuterat exhaled sharply. "Sir." Tund lifted a hand, not harshly, just to pause her. Then he looked back at Zainab. "I didn't expect anyone to notice me," he said. "Most people don't." Zainab's throat tightened. "Why would you be under a bridge, sitting on a carton?" Tun's jaw worked as if he had swallowed something heavier than food. "Because when you live in a building made of glass, you start to forget what the street smells like. And sometimes you need to remember. Not from a car window. Up close." Zainab's head spun. Nothing about this felt like her life. It felt like a movie scene she had walked into by mistake. And yet her foam pack had been real. Her hunger was real. His first bite had been real. Cuterat opened the SUV door wider. "Please, let's go. We can talk inside." Zainab didn't climb in. "My interview." Tun's gaze sharpened, like he had just remembered something important. "You said your interview is at Adebayo Holdings." "Yes," Zainab said, almost angry now. "Not because I know you. Because I applied like everybody. I passed the online test. I got the call. I came. That's all." "I believe you," he said. Cuterat's eyes flicked to him, warning. Tund ignored it and kept his eyes on Zainab. "What role?" "Administrative assistant," Zainab said. Then, because fear makes people defend themselves, she added, "Not CEO's assistant. Not special. Just admin." Tund nodded slowly. "And you're late." Zainab's cheeks burned. "Because I stopped to give you food." Silence stretched for a beat. Cuterat looked uncomfortable, like the sentence was a problem that didn't have a simple solution. Tun's voice softened. "Then you did a good thing at the worst time." Zainab's eyes stung. Not with gratitude. With frustration. With the unfairness of being kind and still paying for it. She forced her voice steady. "So can I go now?" Tund didn't answer directly. He looked down at her shoes, simple black flats, worn at the back. Then at her blouse, neatly ironed but slightly faded at the elbows. He looked at her like a person, not like a stranger. "You can," he said. "But not yet." Zainab's spine stiffened. "Excuse me?" He tilted his head slightly. "If you walk into that building alone right now, late, shaky, hungry, you'll be judged before you speak. And there's something else." Cuterat cut in, urgent. "Sir, we don't have time for." Tun's eyes narrowed briefly, and Cuterat fell silent. Zainab felt a cold wave move through her. "Something else like what?" Tun's voice dropped. "Someone inside that company is expecting you to show up today. Not to hire you." Zainab stared. "What are you saying?" Tan's gaze held hers, steady and serious. I'm saying your name came up in a conversation last night. And it wasn't because of your CV. Zainab felt her mouth go dry. Her mind rushed through possibilities, mistaken identity, debt, gossip, old neighbors. None of it made sense. I don't even know anybody there, she said too quickly. I'm not connected. I'm not. Cuterat spoke now, her voice careful. Zainab, do you have anyone who might want to embarrass you? Anyone who might want you to fail? Zainab's mind flashed to her stepmother's face. The way she had smiled too sweetly when Zainab told them about the interview. The way she had asked, which company again? Like she was just being supportive. The way she had repeated the name under her breath, as if tasting it. Zainab swallowed hard. Why are you asking me this? Tund nodded toward the SUV. Because you helped me at a moment you didn't have to. And because of that, I'm going to help you walk into that building with your head up. Zainab's eyes narrowed. Help me how? Tund didn't answer immediately. He leaned slightly closer, not invading her space, but making his next words feel like a private warning. There's a file with your name on it, he said. And it's not the one you submitted. Zainab's breath caught. That's impossible. Cuterat's lips pressed into a thin line. It's not. Zainab looked between them, feeling the ground shift again. Her interview was no longer an interview. It was a trap with her name written neatly at the top. And the man she fed with her last food was standing in front of her, calm, like he had already decided what to do about it. Zainab sat in the back seat of the SUV like her body was present but her mind was still under the bridge. The leather smelled clean and expensive. The air conditioner hummed with a quiet confidence. Outside the tinted glass, Lagos moved as usual. People running for buses, hawkers weaving through traffic, a woman balancing a tray of oranges on her head as if gravity had no opinion. Inside, everything felt slower. Controlled. Cuterat Falad sat opposite her, a tablet in her lap, her posture stiff. One of the security men sat in the front passenger seat, eyes forward, hand resting near his belt like a habit. The driver pulled into traffic with the calm of someone who didn't fear potholes or road rage. Tund Adebayo sat beside Zainab, not too close, not too far. He didn't speak immediately. He stared out of the window as if he was counting the city's wounds. Zainab's stomach tightened again. Hunger was becoming a dull ache, the kind that made you lightheaded. She pressed her palm against her thigh, trying to ground herself. Sir, she said finally. Her voice sounded smaller in that car. I don't understand why you're involving yourself. Tund turned his head slightly. Because I saw your face when you gave me that food. Zainab frowned. My face? You didn't give it like someone performing, he said. You gave it like someone paying a cost. Cuterat's fingers tapped the tablet once. We need to focus on the immediate issue, she said, clipped. Sir, you have a board meeting at 9. Tund didn't look at her. Move it. Cuterat's eyes widened. Sir. Move it, he repeated, quiet but final. Cuterat's mouth opened, then closed. She typed something quickly. Zainab watched them, confused by how a sentence could rearrange an entire company's morning. It scared her a little. Power wasn't loud. Sometimes it was just one word. Tund looked back at Zainab. Tell me about your family. Zainab stiffened. Why? Because someone doesn't fabricate a file for a random girl without a reason, Tund said. It's either blackmail, sabotage, or a lie meant to control hiring. All of those require a story. Zainab swallowed. She hated how quickly her mind pulled up her stepmother again, like the name was written in ink behind her eyelids. My father is alive, she said carefully. He's a driver. Not for a big man. For a small transport company. He has back issues. He tries. My mother died when I was 12. Cuterat's tapping stopped. Tund's face didn't change, but his eyes softened slightly, like something in him understood the weight of that sentence. Zainab continued, because once the truth opens its mouth, it doesn't like being silenced. After my mum died, my dad remarried. My stepmother, Bimp, she's not evil. She's just sharp. She doesn't like wasting kindness on people she thinks won't bring profit back. Cuterat lifted her head. Does she know about this interview? Zainab hesitated. Yes. Tun's gaze sharpened. How? Zainab looked down at her hands. I told them. I was excited. I thought it would change things. Tund nodded slowly. Did she ask questions? Zainab's throat tightened. She asked which company. She asked who called me. She asked if they needed guarantors. Kudarat's face went still. Guarantors? Yes, Zainab said quickly. I told her I didn't know. It was just an email and then a call. Nothing else. Tund leaned back slightly. That's enough. Zainab looked up, alarmed. Enough for what? Tund's voice stayed calm. Enough for someone to plant a story with your name. Enough for someone to claim you owe them, or you're connected to something you're not. Enough for someone inside my company to take advantage. Kudarat's jaw tightened. Sir, the internal leak we discussed. Tund lifted a hand. I know. Zainab stared at him. Leak? Kudarat looked uncomfortable now, like she was holding back information that didn't belong to Zainab. Tund didn't care. He turned toward her. There's a recruitment fraud ring we've been tracking, he said. People inside companies create fake special candidates. They attach false documents, police reports, debt claims, disciplinary records. Then they use it to pressure HR. Zainab's chest tightened. Pressure them to do what? To reject the person, Tund said. Or to hire them under control. To extort money. To force them into loyalty. It depends on the scheme. Zainab's lips parted, and no sound came out. Her mind flashed to her small room. To her carefully ironed blouse. To her cousin's hopeful message. To her father's tired face when he gave her transport money and said, "Make me proud." She felt sick. But why me? She whispered. Tund studied her. Because you are alone enough to be easy. The words hit hard. Not because they were insulting, but because they were honest. Zainab's eyes stung. She blinked fast, angry at herself for being emotional in front of these people. Kudarat cleared her throat and turned the tablet screen toward Tund. Sir, we located the file. Zainab leaned forward instinctively, then stopped herself. She didn't want to look desperate. Tund took the tablet. His eyes moved across the screen. Zainab watched his face closely, trying to read what he was seeing. His expression stayed controlled, but a muscle in his jaw tightened once. Kudarat spoke softly, like she was reading a medical result. It was uploaded last night. Not through the public portal. Through an internal access point. Tund handed the tablet back to Kudarat. Show her. Kudarat hesitated. Sir. Show her. Kudarat turned the tablet toward Zainab. Zainab's breath caught. At the top, in bold letters, Zainab AI, risk profile. Under it were bullet points. Not official looking, not clean. But formatted enough to look real to someone rushing through files. Alleged involvement in a missing funds case, community cooperative. Outstanding personal debt, multiple lenders. High likelihood of recruitment manipulation. Recommended action, subject to controlled offer or rejection. Zainab's eyes blurred. This is a lie. Kudarat nodded once. We know. Zainab's finger hovered over the screen, then pulled back. It felt dirty to touch it. Her voice came out shaky. Missing funds? Cooperative? I don't even belong to any cooperative. Tund's tone stayed firm. That's why it's effective. It's vague enough to be hard to disprove quickly. Zainab's hands trembled. Who did this? Kudarat scrolled. The access trail is masked, but it came from a workstation within our HR unit. Zainab's heart thudded. So, someone inside your company is doing this. Tund nodded. Yes. Zainab looked away toward the window, fighting the urge to cry. Cars moved past, indifferent. A man on a bike carried a crate of eggs like his life depended on balance. Zainab's voice dropped. If I go in there, they'll see this and think it's true. Kudarat answered, if you go in alone, yes. Zainab turned to Tund. Then why are we going there at all? Tund's gaze didn't flinch. Because if we quietly delete the file, they'll upload another one. Or they'll target someone else. And because your life doesn't deserve to be rearranged by liars. Zainab stared at him. So what are you going to do? Tun's voice was calm, but there was steel under it. We'll let them play their hand. In a controlled room. With witnesses. Cuterat inhaled sharply. Sir, you're suggesting a live exposure. That carries reputational risk. Tund looked at her. What carries risk is allowing criminals to operate in my house. Zainab swallowed, trying to follow. You want me to still do the interview? Yes, Tund said. But not the way they planned. Cuterat leaned forward, professional again. Here are the steps. You will enter as a regular candidate. You will sit. You will answer questions. If they bring up the false file, you will not panic. You will let them finish. Zainab's stomach clenched. How am I supposed to not panic? Tun's eyes met hers. Because you're not alone today. Zainab's throat tightened again. The sentence hit something tender in her. She hated how much she needed to hear it. The SUV turned into a quieter road. Tall gates. Clean sidewalks. Security cameras. The kind of environment that made Zainab feel like her breath was too loud. She saw the Adebayo Holdings building ahead, glass, steel, and arrogance. The sign was polished like it was proud of itself. The driver pulled into the entrance lane. A guard straightened and saluted when he saw the number plate. The gate opened immediately, no questioning. Zainab's heart started to race. This was real. Tund glanced at her. Look at me. Zainab forced her eyes to his. Tell me the truth, he said. Why did you stop under that bridge? Zainab blinked, confused. Because you were hungry. That's the obvious answer, Tund said. What's the deeper one? Zainab's chest rose and fell. She searched for the truth, not the nice one. I know what it feels like, she admitted, voice low. To be invisible. To be hungry and still have to act like you're fine. I couldn't just walk away. Tund held her gaze for a long beat, then nodded once, like he had received something important. Good, he said. Hold on to that. That's your spine today. Cuterat opened her handbag and pulled out a sealed bottle of water and a small wrapped snack, placing them beside Zainab without making a big show of it. Eat quickly, she said. You can't think well on an empty stomach. Zainab hesitated, then tore it open with shaking fingers. The first bite was small, but it steadied her, like her brain lights came on again. The SUV stopped near a private entrance. A staff member rushed out to open the door, eyes respectful, careful not to stare. Zainab stepped out, her legs slightly unsteady. She adjusted her blouse. Her palms were damp. She wiped them on her skirt and prayed no one noticed. Tund stepped out too, and the atmosphere changed. People didn't just look, they aligned themselves. They stood straighter. They made space. They lowered voices. Zainab realized something that made her pulse jump. Nobody expected him to be here this early. He was the surprise. Cuterat leaned in close to Zainab's ear. One more thing, she whispered. If anyone asks how you met him, you say you don't know. You only say the truth if he instructs you to. Zainab's brows knitted. Why? Cuterat's mouth tightened. Because someone might twist even that kindness into a connection. They might claim you planned it. Zainab's stomach dropped again. Even the good thing could be used against her. They walked toward the elevator corridor. The building swallowed them in chilled air and polished floors. Zainab's reflection appeared in the marble, small, tense, trying to look confident. The elevator doors opened. Inside were two men in suits, senior staff. They froze when they saw Tund. Sir, one of them stammered. Good morning. We weren't told. Tund's voice cut cleanly through the awkwardness. I'm attending the interviews. Both men blinked like they had misheard. Cuterat's eyes flicked to Zainab, warning without words. This is about to get serious. Zainab's heart thumped harder. Because if Tund Adebayo was attending interviews, it meant someone had pushed him to this point. And whoever created that fake file had no idea their target had walked into the building with the owner. The elevator doors opened and Tund said, I'm attending the interviews, and the staff inside froze. If the real boss was listening while someone tried to destroy your chances, would you stay calm, or would you expose everything immediately? If you're locked in, become a subscriber so you don't miss how the first question reveals who set her up. The interview waiting area smelled like perfume, paper, and nervous sweat hidden under deodorant. Zainab sat on the edge of a gray chair with her folder on her lap, fingers locked around it so tightly her knuckles ached. Around her were 6 other candidates, all dressed in the same Lagos uniform of hope: black skirts, white shirts, ties that didn't quite sit right, shoes polished too hard for people who didn't polish shoes often. A wall-mounted TV played muted news. Nobody watched it. Every few seconds, someone checked their phone like time could be negotiated. A receptionist behind a glass desk called names in a calm voice, as if she was announcing bank token numbers. Zainab's name was next on the list. She knew it because she had read the paper 3 times already. Zainab Ajayi, 8:30 a.m. Her stomach still felt hollow, but the small snack Kudarat gave her had steadied her head. What hadn't steadied was the feeling that she was walking into a room where someone had already decided who she was. Across the room, a middle-aged man in a blue security uniform stood near the corridor entrance. His hairline was receding and his face carried that older Lagos tiredness. But his eyes were sharp, watching the flow of staff and visitors like a fisherman watching water. He looked at Zainab for a moment longer than necessary. Then he approached. "Madam," he said quietly. Zainab lifted her head, startled. "Yes." He lowered his voice. "You were brought through the private entrance, ABI?" Zainab's throat tightened. She glanced around. "I don't know what you mean." The man's lips pressed together. He didn't look angry. He looked concerned. "My name is Sewell," he said. "I've been in this building since before the glass was installed. I know the difference between a visitor and a guest." Zainab forced a small smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Sir, I'm just here for my interview." Sewell studied her face carefully, like he was reading the truth in her expression instead of her words. He nodded once. "Good," he said. "Then keep your eyes open. Not everybody inside this place wants people like you to enter." Zainab's chest tightened. "People like me?" Sewell leaned in slightly, then stopped, choosing his words. "People without uncles. Without godfathers. Without big names. The ones that can be pushed around." Zainab swallowed hard. Her phone buzzed again in her bag, but she ignored it. She couldn't handle another message from home right now. Sewell straightened. "When you go inside, answer what you know. Don't over-explain. Lies like explanation." Before Zainab could ask what he meant, Sewell stepped back and returned to his post like the conversation never happened. Zainab sat still, heart thumping. An elder witness, she thought. Grounded. Watching. It didn't feel comforting. It felt like warning bells. A door opened. A young woman in a cream blouse walked out holding her folder too tightly. Her eyes were wet, but she kept her chin up, refusing to let anybody see her break. Next, the receptionist called. "Zainab Ajayi." Zainab stood. Her legs felt slightly numb. She smoothed her skirt once, adjusted the collar of her blouse, and walked toward the corridor. As she passed Sewell, he lifted 2 fingers slightly in a small gesture, half blessing, half warning. Zainab stepped through the door. The interview room was colder than the waiting area, air-conditioned to the point of disrespect. A long table sat in the center. On one side were 3 interviewers. A woman in her early 40s sat in the middle, hair pulled back, lipstick perfect. She wore a navy suit and a small gold pin. Her face was calm, but her eyes were the kind that measured people in seconds. To her left was a younger man with glasses, likely HR support. To her right was an older man with a soft belly and a tired expression, as if he had other places to be. And at the far end of the room, slightly behind them, sat a 4th person in a simple gray suit. He was positioned as an observer, not part of the panel. Zainab's breath caught for half a second. Tunde Adebayo. He was clean now. Hair neat. Face wiped. No carton dust. No bridge shadow. If she hadn't seen him eat rice with trembling hands, she might have believed he was born in this room. But he didn't look at her. Not even a glance. His gaze stayed on a notepad, pen resting between his fingers like he belonged to every meeting on Earth. Zainab understood immediately what Kudarat had meant. If anyone thought she knew him, it could become a weapon. So she did what she was told. She acted like she didn't know him. The woman in the middle spoke first. "Good morning. Sit." Zainab sat. She placed her folder carefully on the table, aligning it with the edge like neatness could protect her. "State your full name," the woman said. "Zainab Ajokajayi," Zainab answered. The woman nodded without warmth. "I'm Nena Okafor, head of talent acquisition." Zainab kept her face neutral. Something about the woman's voice felt practiced, like she could say pleasant words while doing unpleasant things. The younger man introduced himself quickly. The older man did the same. Their names floated in Zainab's head and didn't land. Only Okafor landed. "Why do you want to work at Adebayo Holdings?" Okafor asked. Zainab answered steadily. She spoke about stability, growth, learning under structured systems. She spoke like someone who had rehearsed in front of a cracked mirror. Okafor listened without reacting. Then she slid a file on the table, tapping it lightly with one finger. "Before we continue, we need to clarify some information." Zainab's stomach tightened. Okafor opened the file. Zainab recognized the formatting immediately. The same bold header. The same poison wrapped in office language. Okafor looked up. "Are you currently involved in any ongoing investigation related to missing funds?" Zainab's breath caught, but she didn't let her face collapse. She remembered Sul's words. "Don't over-explain. Lies like explanation." "No," she said simply. Okafor blinked once, like she expected panic. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Zainab said, voice firm. Okafor's lips curved slightly, almost a smile, but colder. "Because according to this report, your name was mentioned in a cooperative society issue in Ilorin." Zainab's chest tightened again. They had even chosen a location that sounded believable for a girl like her. It was smart. Dirty but smart. "I have never been part of any cooperative society," Zainab said. "I have never been investigated for missing funds." Okafor leaned back in her chair. "Then why is this here?" Zainab held her gaze. "I don't know." The older man on the panel shifted uncomfortably. The younger man avoided eye contact, staring at his laptop. Okafor flipped a page. "Do you have any outstanding debts from personal lenders?" Zainab's mind flashed to the small loan her father took for hospital bills. Nothing formal, just a neighbor's contribution that her father was repaying slowly. But that wasn't multiple lenders. That wasn't criminal. That was survival. "I don't have multiple lenders," Zainab said carefully. "My family has personal obligations like most families, but nothing that affects my integrity or work." Okafor's eyes sharpened. "So you admit you have obligations." Zainab understood the trap. If she denied completely, they could call her a liar. If she admitted too much, they could paint her as risky. She breathed once and kept her tone calm. "I admit my father is human and life is expensive. I do not admit to any dishonest debt or missing funds." The room went quiet for a second. At the far end, Tun's pen moved across his notepad. Still no eye contact. Okafor's smile thinned. "You speak well," she said. "But speaking well isn't the same as being clean." Zainab's fingers curled under the table. She refused to let her hands shake where they could see it. "Madam," Zainab said, choosing respect without weakness, "if you have a credible report against me, please provide the official reference number so I can verify it. If not, I would like to continue with the interview based on my qualifications." The older man on the panel lifted his head slightly, surprised. The younger man finally looked at Zainab, as if noticing her for the first time. Okafor held Zainab's gaze for a long beat. Then she closed the file gently. Too gently. "We will continue," Okafor said. She asked about Zainab's experience. Zainab spoke about her internship at a small logistics firm, her role managing records, handling calls, coordinating deliveries. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't beg. She kept her voice steady. Halfway through, Okafor asked, "Do you have anyone inside Adebayo Holdings?" Zainab's heart thumped, but her face stayed calm. "No." Okafor's eyes narrowed. "No relatives? No mentors? No connections?" "No," Zainab repeated. Okafor leaned forward slightly, voice quieter. "Then how did you get this interview?" Zainab's jaw tightened. "I applied online. I took your test. I was shortlisted." That is how. Okafor nodded slowly, like she was listening to a child insist on a lie. Interesting. The older man cleared his throat, uncomfortable. Okafor, she answered. Okafor ignored him. One final question, she said, and her voice changed, smooth, almost friendly. If offered this role, who would be your guarantor? Zainab swallowed. This was another knife disguised as paper. My father, she said. And my pastor. Okafor's eyes flickered, just once, like she had been waiting for that answer. The younger man typed something quickly into his laptop. Okafor nodded. Thank you. You can wait outside. Zainab stood on legs that felt like they belonged to someone else. She gathered her folder, nodded respectfully, and walked to the door. Her hand touched the handle. Okafor's voice stopped her. Zainab. Zainab turned. Okafor held the file again, tapping it lightly. You should understand something. This company values integrity. If you're hiding anything, it will come out. And when it comes out, you won't just lose a job opportunity. You will lose your reputation. Zainab met her eyes, refusing to shrink. Then I'm not afraid. Okafor smiled. This time, it looked like satisfaction. Zainab stepped out and closed the door behind her. In the corridor, her breath came out shaky. She walked back to the waiting area, sat down, and stared at her hands. They weren't shaking. But inside, she felt like she had just survived a quiet attack. Sul looked at her from his post. His eyes asked a question. Zainab gave a small, almost invisible nod. They tried it. Minutes passed. Other candidates were called in. Zainab's mind replayed Okafor's questions, searching for hidden meanings. Then the door to the interview room opened again. Not for another candidate. For Okafor. She stepped into the waiting area with a phone in her hand, her face tight with anger that she was trying to hide. She scanned the seats like a hunter scanning bushes. Her eyes landed on Zainab. Okafor walked directly toward her. Zainab's stomach dropped. Okafor stopped in front of her and spoke in a low voice that only Zainab could hear. Tell your stepmother to stop calling my office. Zainab's blood turned cold. Because Zainab had never mentioned her stepmother's name in that room. And Okafor said it like she had been waiting for this moment. Zainab stared up at Nena Okafor as if the woman had slapped her with a sentence. My stepmother? Zainab whispered. Okafor's eyes stayed cold. Yes. The woman that has been calling my office since 6:58 a.m. Zainab's throat tightened so hard it felt like swallowing stones. I don't understand. Okafor leaned closer, lowering her voice. You want to come and act like you're clean, like you're alone, like you're some innocent girl applying online. Meanwhile, your people are already disturbing us. Zainab's hands curled into fists on her lap. My people are not disturbing anybody. Okafor's mouth twitched. Then tell her to stop. Before she ruins what little chance you have. Okafor straightened and walked away like she had just dropped rubbish in a bin and didn't want to smell it. Zainab sat frozen. The waiting room noise returned slowly, names being called, heels clicking, papers rustling, yet everything felt far away. Her ears rang. Her head was suddenly heavy. Her stepmother had called Adebayo Holdings. Not once. Multiple times. And Okafor said it like it was normal, like family members always called HR to negotiate their daughter's future. But Zainab knew her own house. They didn't have that kind of confidence. They didn't even have that kind of phone credit. Zainab grabbed her phone with shaking fingers and opened her missed calls. No call from Bimp. No message. Nothing. That was what made it worse. It meant Bimp wasn't calling Zainab to help. She was calling behind her back. Zainab stood abruptly, forgetting herself. Sul noticed immediately. He stepped away from his post, moving closer without rushing. Easy, he said. Don't scatter yourself here. Zainab's voice broke. My stepmother called them. Sul's eyes narrowed. Not surprised. Just disappointed, like he had seen this story in different clothes many times. Come, Sul said, nodding toward a quieter corner near a pillar where CCTV cameras didn't point directly. Breathe first. Zainab followed him, her legs shaky. Sul didn't touch her. He just positioned himself like a shield between her and curious eyes. Who is the woman? Sul asked. Her name is Bimp, Zainab said. Bimp Ajayi. She's my father's wife. Sul nodded slowly. And she knows people? No, Zainab said quickly. She sells fabrics at Oja Oba sometimes, and she does small contribution. She's just bold. Sul's face tightened. Boldness is enough in Lagos. Zainab's mouth went dry. How did she even get the HR number? Sul didn't answer. He just looked toward the corridor that led to the HR offices, then back to Zainab. There are workers here that sell access, he said quietly. You buy one phone number today, you buy a whole file tomorrow. Zainab's stomach turned. She thought of her stepmother's sweet smile the night before. The way she had repeated the company name under her breath. The way she had asked about guarantors, like she was already planning something. Zainab swallowed. What do I do? Sul's eyes softened slightly. You don't do anything in public. Not with emotions. Not with mouth. You let the people that can fight in rooms fight for you. Zainab's heart hammered. Who is fighting for me? Sul glanced down the corridor again, then said, The man you came with. Zainab's breath caught. Even now, she couldn't fully accept that the same man she fed under a bridge was sitting inside her interview like a quiet storm. Before she could respond, her phone vibrated. A message. From her father. Zainab, where are you? Bimp said HR called our house. She's shouting. She said you embarrassed her. Zainab felt her eyes sting. She read it twice, then a third time, as if the words might change. HR called our house. That was impossible. How would HR call their house? They didn't even have a landline. Her father barely answered unknown numbers. Another message came immediately after. She said they asked if you're owing money. Zainab, what happened? Zainab's chest tightened so hard she had to press her palm against it. Okafor had said Bimp was calling HR. Her father was saying, HR called our house. Someone was lying. Or someone was twisting the truth to create panic. Zainab typed with trembling thumbs. Daddy, calm down. HR did not call me. I'm still in the building. Please don't fight with her. I will explain later. She sent it, then stared at the screen, helpless. Sul watched her face. They're trying to shake your home so you lose your balance here. Zainab's voice came out small. But why? Sul leaned closer, voice rougher now. Because if you're confused, you'll make mistakes. If you make mistakes, they'll write your story for you. Zainab swallowed hard. Okafor said my stepmother should stop calling her office. Sul's expression hardened. Okafor. He said the name like he had been carrying it in his mouth for a long time. Zainab noticed. You know her? Sul looked away for a second. I know how some people climb. And what they step on. Zainab's pulse quickened. Have you seen her do something? Sul's eyes flicked to the ceiling where a camera sat. Then he looked at Zainab again. I'm security, he said. If I talk carelessly, I lose my job. If I lose my job, my children go hungry. But I can tell you this, there are meetings in this building that are not in calendars. Zainab's stomach sank. Meetings not in calendars. Secret meetings. Just then, Kudarat Falad appeared at the far end of the waiting area. She didn't call Zainab's name loudly. She simply made eye contact and gave a small nod. Zainab's body tensed. Sul stepped back. Go, he murmured. And keep your face normal. Zainab forced her shoulders to relax, forced her feet to walk like she wasn't carrying fear in her chest. She followed Kudarat down a hallway that led away from the interview rooms into a quieter section of the building. They entered a small conference room with frosted glass walls. Inside, Tund Adebayo sat at the head of the table. His suit was sharp, but his eyes looked tired in a deeper way than hunger. Two other people were present. A stern-looking man in a legal department badge, and a slim woman with a laptop open, fingers poised like she was ready to type a verdict. Tun gestured for Zainab to sit. Zainab sat slowly, hands folded in her lap so nobody would see them shake. Kudarat closed the door behind her. Tun spoke first. Okafor spoke to you. It wasn't a question. Zainab nodded. She said my stepmother has been calling her. The legal man's jaw clenched. The woman with the laptop typed something quickly. Tund leaned back slightly. We pulled the call logs. Cuterat slid a printed sheet across the table to Zainab. Zainab's eyes scanned the page. A list of numbers. Durations. Her stepmother's number was there. Multiple calls. To an internal extension. Not the public HR line. Zainab's breath caught. How did she get this extension? Cuterat's voice was tight. Because someone gave it to her. The legal man finally spoke, voice flat. This is procurement-grade misconduct. And that's before we even address the fabricated risk file. Zainab's fingers hovered over the page. So my stepmother is involved with someone inside HR. Tund didn't answer immediately. He looked at Zainab with an expression that wasn't pity. It was recognition, like he understood what it meant to realize betrayal didn't always come from enemies. Your stepmother may believe she's helping herself, he said quietly. But she's being used. Zainab's throat tightened. Used for what? Cuterat opened her tablet and rotated it toward Zainab. On the screen was a screenshot of a message thread. Names were blurred, but one contact label was visible, Bimp A. Zainab's stomach flipped. The messages were short, businesslike, cruel in their simplicity. Madam, your girl is shortlisted. But there is an issue on her profile. So how? Integrity. The missing funds matter. If we handle it, she can still enter. Handle it how much? A pause in the thread, then 350. Zainab's vision blurred. No. Cuterat scrolled. I don't have that kind money. Then she will fail. And it will be official. Please. She's my husband's daughter. If she enter, she will help us. Madam, business is business. Zainab's chest rose sharply. Her breath came out uneven. So that was it. Extortion. They created a fake stain on her name, then offered a solution to her stepmother, knowing Bimp would panic and scramble. They weren't even aiming at Zainab first. They were aiming at the softest point around her. Zainab swallowed, her voice trembling. My stepmother is not even rich. She will borrow. She will sell things. She will turn the whole house upside down to pay this. The legal man nodded once. That's the design. Zainab looked at Tund. So Okafor is the one texting her? Tund's eyes didn't move. We're not assuming. We're proving. Cuterat stepped in. The messages came through a number registered under a false name. But it has been active in similar cases. We have 3 open files from other applicants who were quietly rejected after integrity concerns appeared overnight. Zainab's mouth went dry. Other people. The laptop woman spoke for the first time. 2 of them paid. 1 refused. All 3 were still rejected. Help was a lie. Zainab's stomach turned. So even if my stepmother paid, they would still reject me. Cuterat nodded. Yes. Zainab felt something crack inside her. Not heartbreak. Anger. Quiet, focused anger. All her careful planning. All her prayers. All her effort to be decent. And somebody turned it into a transaction. Tund leaned forward. Zainab, I need your consent. Zainab blinked. Consent for what? Tund's voice stayed calm. To contact your father. And to invite your stepmother here. Zainab's eyes widened. Invite her here? Cuterat added, we can't keep chasing shadows. If she's already in contact with them, she becomes a key witness. We'll bring her into a controlled meeting. Legal present. Security present. Record everything. Zainab's heartbeat quickened. But if she comes, she will deny. She will shout. She will embarrass me. Tund held her gaze. She may. But truth doesn't need quiet to be true. Zainab stared at the message thread again, then the call logs, then the fake risk file header that still burned in her mind. She thought of her father, already stressed at home. She thought of Bimp's pride, how she hated being corrected, how she hated looking foolish. And she thought of the other candidates who paid and still lost. Zainab lifted her chin slightly. Call my father, she said. Invite her. Cuterat moved immediately, dialing. Tund's voice softened a fraction. One more thing. Zainab looked at him. This meeting will likely happen in the executive conference room, he said. Okafor will be there. And if she's guilty, she will try to control the narrative. Zainab's mouth went dry again. What do I do? Tun's eyes stayed steady. You tell the truth in simple sentences. No insults. No begging. Just facts. Zainab nodded slowly. A controlled room. Witnesses. Recording. It sounded like safety. But she knew something else too. When family enters formal rooms, private shame becomes public air. And once shame becomes air, it moves everywhere. Kudarat ended the call and looked at Zainab. Your father is coming, she said. Zainab's stomach dropped. He's coming here? Kudarat nodded. And your stepmother is already on her way. She thinks she's coming to settle HR so you can be hired. Zainab's throat tightened. Bimp was walking into the lion's den believing she was holding meat. And Okafor was about to discover the owner of the house was sitting at the table. Kudarat's tablet showed the chat. 350, business is business. And Zainab realized they were extorting her home. If you were in her shoes, would you protect your stepmother from public shame, or let the truth play out with witnesses? If you're enjoying this, become a subscriber, because the meeting they're about to hold will expose the real enemy. The executive conference room sat on the 20th floor, where Lagos looked quiet from above and problems sounded smaller than they were. Zainab stood near the window with her hands clasped in front of her, watching cars crawl like ants on Ozumbambadu. Her reflection in the glass looked composed, but her stomach was knotted so tight she could barely breathe. Kudarat had arranged the room like a courtroom without a judge. Water bottles placed evenly. A recorder on the center of the table, visible enough to discourage drama. Legal seated on one side. The slim woman with the laptop positioned to capture every word. Tund Adebayo sat at the head of the table. Not leaning back. Not relaxed. Present. Zainab could feel it. The building itself seemed to adjust around him. Even the air conditioner sounded quieter. A soft knock came at the door. Kudarat opened it. Zainab's father stepped in first. Suleiman Ajayi looked older than his age. His shirt was tucked in but wrinkled from haste. His eyes were red at the corners, like he had been arguing or worrying without sleeping. He held his cap in his hands, twisting it as he entered, scanning the room like a man walking into a place he didn't belong. Behind him came Bimp. Bimp Ajayi wore a well-fitted Ankara gown and a geli tied with aggressive perfection. Her makeup was fresh. She carried her handbag like it was a weapon, chin lifted, eyes sharp and defensive before anyone even spoke. And behind them, like fate making sure the stage was full, Nena Okafor entered with 2 HR staff members. Okafor's expression was professional, but the muscles in her jaw were tight. She glanced at Tund and froze for half a second. Sir, she said quickly, recovering. Good morning. Tund didn't reply with warmth. Sit, Ms. Okafor. The power in the sentence landed like a gavel. Okafor sat. Zainab's father's eyes widened slightly. His gaze moved from Tund's face to the company logo on the wall, then back. He swallowed hard. Bimp, however, didn't swallow anything. She stepped forward, eyes narrowing. This is the chairman? She asked, voice loud enough to make the laptop woman stop typing for a second. Kudarat's tone was calm. Yes. Please, madam, take a seat. Bimp looked at Zainab. Zainab, what is going on? Zainab's throat tightened. Her father looked at her too, worried and confused, like he had been dragged here by a storm he didn't understand. Zainab opened her mouth, but Tund spoke first. Mr. Ajayi. Madam Ajayi, he said, voice even. Thank you for coming. I know this is unusual. Zainab noticed how he addressed them, respectfully, but not familiarly. He was careful to protect her from the appearance of connection, even now. Tund gestured toward the seats. Please sit. We'll keep this simple. Bimp sat, but she sat like she was ready to stand again at any moment. Zainab's father sat slowly, shoulders hunched, eyes down. Okafor tried to take control immediately. Sir, she said, leaning slightly forward, with respect, I don't understand why family members are in a recruitment environment. This is highly irregular and... Tund lifted his hand. Okafor stopped mid-sentence. This meeting is not about recruitment, Tund said. It's about misconduct. Okafor's eyes flickered. Misconduct. Cuterat slid a printed sheet across the table toward Bimp and Zainab's father. Bimp looked at it briefly, then pushed it back like it burned. I don't understand all these office things. I came because you people called. You said there is an issue. I said I will settle it. Zainab's father's head snapped up. Settle what? Bimp's eyes darted to him, then away. Daddy of Zainab, please don't start. Zainab's father looked back at Zainab. What is she talking about? Zainab's voice came out steady, surprising even herself. Daddy, somebody created a false report about me. They told her there's an issue and asked for money to handle it. Her father stared like the words didn't fit in his head. Bimp's face tightened. Zainab, keep quiet. You're making it worse. Tun's voice cut through. Madam Ajayi, did you contact anyone in our HR department today? Bimp lifted her chin. Yes. I did. Okafor's posture stiffened. Bimp continued, louder now, proud of her boldness. Because my husband's daughter is serious. She is not a thief. If there is any confusion, it can be corrected. That's why I called. Tund nodded once. How did you get the HR extension you called? Bimp hesitated. Her eyes flicked to Okafor, then away quickly. My friend gave it, she said. Cuterat's voice was calm. Which friend? Bimp's mouth pressed into a line. A person. Okafor leaned forward, forcing a sympathetic tone. Sir, with respect, this is exactly the issue. Candidates' families are pressuring staff. It compromises integrity. We should end this meeting and follow proper channels. Tund looked at her. You're very eager to end this meeting. Okafor's smile was thin. I'm eager to protect the company. Tund nodded slightly. Good. Then we'll protect it with facts. He signaled to the laptop woman. She projected the screenshot of the message thread onto the screen at the front of the room. Bimp's face changed instantly. Not guilt. Fear. Her eyes widened, scanning the messages like she was seeing her own thoughts exposed in public ink. Zainab's father leaned forward, squinting. What is that? Zainab spoke quietly. It's the chat. The one she had with the person who said there's an issue on my profile. Bimp jumped up from her seat. That's private. Cuterat's voice stayed steady. Madam, sit. This is a formal meeting and legal is present. Bimp didn't sit. She turned to Zainab, eyes blazing. So you brought me here to disgrace me? Zainab's father stood halfway too, instinctively trying to calm the situation. Bimp, calm down. What is going on? Who are you chatting with? Why are they asking for money? Bimp's voice rose. Because you people don't understand Lagos. If you don't push your child, they will kill her chances. Zainab flinched at the word, kill, but nobody reacted. In Lagos, people use that word for dreams, not bodies. Okafor seized the chaos. Sir, she said quickly to Tund, this is exactly why recruitment should remain professional. Family interference creates bribery attempts and... Tund's eyes sharpened. Stop. Okafor went silent. Tund gestured to Cuterat again. Cuterat placed another sheet on the table. Madam Ajayi, look at the number in that message thread. Bimp stared at it, then her lips parted slightly. That's the same number, she whispered before she could stop herself. Zainab's father looked between them. Same number as what? Bimp swallowed. Her confidence cracked for the first time. Same number that was calling me. Tund's voice stayed calm. The number used to extort you is connected to the internal workstation that uploaded the fake risk profile. Okafor's face went still. Too still. The older legal man spoke, voice flat and precise. We have internal logs showing the risk document was uploaded from an HR unit computer at 11:41 p.m. last night. The same unit that had active communications with external numbers this morning. Okafor tried to laugh lightly, like the accusation was ridiculous. Sir, that could be anyone. HR is a department. Many people have access. Tund nodded. True. He leaned forward slightly. So we narrowed it down. Okafor's smile began to fade. Cuterat tapped her tablet and another display appeared, building access logs, entry swipe times. Ms. Okafor, Cuterat said, "Your access card entered the HR floor at 11:12 p.m. and exited at 12:06 a.m. Okafor's eyes flashed. That's not unusual. I work late. Legal nodded once. We verified camera footage. You were alone. Okafor's posture stiffened. I'm head of talent acquisition. I have responsibilities. Tun's voice was quiet. Responsibilities don't include fabricating a criminal profile on a candidate and extorting her family. Okafor's eyes widened. Sir, this is outrageous. Zainab's father sat down heavily, as if the room had suddenly tilted. He looked at Bimp with an expression Zainab had never seen, hurt mixed with disbelief. You were going to pay? He whispered. Bimp turned to him, defensiveness rushing back to cover fear. If I didn't, she would lose the job. Zainab's father's voice cracked. And who told you that? Who? Bimp's gaze flicked to Okafor again. It was small. But everyone in that room saw it. Cuterat's eyes narrowed. The laptop woman's fingers moved faster. Legal leaned in slightly, as if the case had just tightened around its target. Okafor's face hardened. Madam, please don't look at me. I don't know you. Bimp's voice rose. You don't know me? You were the one that... Zainab's stomach dropped. Bimp stopped mid-sentence, realizing what she was about to say in front of the chairman, legal, and a recording device. Silence fell. Zainab felt her heartbeat in her ears. Tun didn't rush. He let the silence do its work. Then he spoke softly. Madam Ajayi, finish your sentence. Bimp's mouth opened, then closed. Zainab's father looked at her, eyes wet. Bimp. Finish it. Bimp's hands trembled around her handbag strap. Pride fought with fear on her face like two people struggling in a doorway. Okafor leaned forward, voice sharp now. Sir, this is harassment. You're coercing a guest. There is no direct evidence linking me to that number. Tun's gaze stayed on Bimp. Madam Ajayi, did you speak to Ms. Okafor directly today? Bimp swallowed hard. No, she said quickly. I didn't. Okafor exhaled, relief flashing across her face for half a second. Then Bimp added, voice smaller, almost unwilling. But she sent me her assistant. Okafor's relief vanished. Legal's head lifted. Her assistant? Bimp nodded, looking at Zainab now, pleading without words. Don't let them destroy me. Zainab's chest tightened. For all Bimp's sharpness, Zainab could see the truth. She had panicked. She had tried to control a future she didn't understand. And she had walked right into a trap. Zainab's father's voice was rough. What assistant? Name the person. Bimp's eyes darted again, then she said it, quiet but clear. Chica. Okafor's head snapped up. That is a lie. Cuterat's fingers were already moving on her tablet. Tund remained still, but his voice dropped into something colder. Chica who? Bimp's lips trembled. Chica Nwosu. HR. Okafor's face tightened like a door locking. Cuterat looked up. Chica Nwosu is scheduled to be on duty downstairs right now. Zainab's stomach flipped. Tund nodded once. Bring her. Okafor stood abruptly. Sir, this is turning into a witch hunt. Tund didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Sit down, Ms. Okafor. Okafor hesitated, then sat, breathing hard through her nose. Zainab's father put his face in his hands for a second, shoulders shaking slightly, then he straightened and looked at Zainab with raw pain. I gave you transport money, he whispered. I prayed. I said God will open door. And inside the door, they are selling shame. Zainab's eyes burned, but she kept her voice steady. Daddy, look at me. I did nothing. Her father nodded slowly, swallowing tears he didn't want strangers to see. The door opened. A young woman stepped in, mid-20s, neat ponytail, HR badge clipped to her blouse. She looked confused at first, then frightened when she saw who was in the room. Her eyes landed on Okafor. Okafor's stare was a warning without words. The young woman's throat bobbed as she swallowed. Tun's voice was calm and deadly polite. Are you Chica Nwosu? The woman nodded. Yes, sir. Legal slid a printed page across the table toward her. Do you recognize this number? Chica looked at it. Her face drained of color. Zainab felt a cold wave move through her body. Because Chika's expression wasn't confusion. It was recognition. And the room went so quiet you could hear the air conditioner breathing. Chika Nwosu's eyes stayed on the paper like it was a snake she didn't want to touch. Her lips moved once, then stopped. She looked up at Ms. Okafor, and whatever she saw there made her shoulders stiffen. Okafor didn't blink. She sat upright, hands folded, face arranged into the calm mask of a woman used to controlling rooms. Tunde Adebayo didn't rush Chika. He let the silence stretch long enough for everyone to understand what was happening. Chika was deciding who to fear more, her boss or the truth. Zainab sat very still, hands clasped so tightly her nails dug into her skin. Her father's breathing sounded rough beside her. Bimp sat with her handbag on her lap like a child hugging a pillow, eyes shining with fear and pride fighting for space. Legal spoke again, precise. Miss Nwosu, do you recognize the number? Chika's voice came out small. Yes. Okafor's jaw tightened. Legal's pen moved. State what you know. Chika swallowed. Her eyes flicked to Tunde, then to the recorder on the table, then back to the paper. It's a line we use, she said carefully. Not official. For follow-up. Kudarat's voice was calm. Follow-up for what? Chika hesitated. Her fingers twisted the hem of her blouse. Candidates. Zainab's stomach turned. She heard Sul's earlier words in her mind, meetings not in calendars. Workers that sell access. Tunde finally spoke, voice even. Did you use that line to contact Madame Ajayi? Chika's eyes flicked to Bimp and then dropped. Yes, sir. Bimp inhaled sharply, like she had been punched by her own confession. Zainab's father's head snapped up. So you were the one calling my house? Chika looked at him briefly, shame flickering across her face. No, sir. I didn't call your house. I messaged Madame Ajayi. Zainab's father turned to Bimp, pain in his eyes. You told me HR called. You told me they were asking questions. Bimp's voice cracked. I was scared. I didn't want you to stop me. If you stopped me, Zainab would lose the job. Zainab watched her stepmother carefully. For the first time, Bimp didn't look sharp. She looked small. Not innocent, just human, trapped by her own desperation. Legal didn't allow the emotion to derail facts. Miss Nwosu, who instructed you to contact Madame Ajayi? Chika's throat bobbed. She glanced at Okafor again. Okafor's voice cut in, cold and controlled. This is becoming ridiculous. You're turning a routine background check into a criminal investigation based on family panic and screenshots that can be fabricated. Tunde didn't look at her. Continue, he told Legal. Legal nodded. Miss Nwosu. Answer. Chika's hands began to shake. Madame Okafor told me to handle it. Okafor's head snapped toward her. Chika. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It carried threat. Chika flinched, then forced herself to speak again. She said the candidate's file should be flagged. That I should reach out to the family and see if they're willing to cooperate. Zainab's chest tightened. Cooperate? Like she was a suspect. Legal's voice stayed flat. Cooperate in what sense? Chika's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. Money. The word landed like a heavy object on the table. Zainab's father made a sound, half breath, half disbelief. He leaned back in his chair like his spine had given up. Bimp covered her mouth with one hand. Her eyes darted to Zainab, pleading. Zainab didn't look away. She let her stepmother feel the truth. Okafor's calm mask cracked. This is a lie, she said sharply. Chika, you're trying to save yourself. You're blaming me because you were caught. Kudarat's fingers moved on her tablet. Sir, she said, we pulled the internal chat logs. Okafor's head turned slowly. What logs? Kudarat projected a screen onto the wall. A short exchange, time-stamped from the previous night. Okafor, flag Zainab Ajayi. Use risk template. Upload tonight. Chika, reason? Okafor, family will pay. They always pay. Chika, how much? Okafor, 350. Move fast before interview. The room didn't erupt. It froze. Okafor stared at the screen, eyes wide for a fraction of a second before her face hardened again. Those logs can be edited. Legal's voice was dry. Not when extracted from the internal server with IT present. The laptop woman slid a printed forensic summary across the table. Checksum verified, she said softly. Okafor's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Tund finally turned his head and looked at her fully. His voice was quiet, almost gentle, which made it worse. You've been doing this for how long? Okafor lifted her chin, trying to regain control. Sir, with respect, you're making a mistake. Recruitment is messy. People beg, people cry, people offer things. We can't control everything. Tund's gaze didn't move. That isn't what I asked. Okafor's voice rose slightly. If you fire me, you'll create a scandal. Investors will ask questions. The board will. Tund's tone stayed level. We will answer questions with truth. Okafor's eyes flashed. And what about the girl? You want to pretend you're doing this because she gave you food under a bridge? Zainab felt heat rise in her cheeks. Her hands tightened. Okafor leaned toward her, voice sharp and humiliating. You think you're special? You think kindness buys you a seat at the table? This is Lagos. Nobody gives anything for free. Tund's voice cut in, calm and final. Enough. Okafor snapped her mouth shut. Tund looked toward Legal. Proceed. Legal stood slightly authoritative now. Ms. Okafor, pending internal disciplinary action and criminal complaint, you are suspended with immediate effect. Security will escort you. Your devices and access cards will be collected. Miss Nwosu, you will remain available for questioning as part of a formal investigation. Cooperation will be considered. Chika nodded rapidly, tears finally slipping down her cheeks. She wiped them quickly, ashamed. Okafor sat rigid, breathing hard through her nose. For a second, Zainab saw fear behind the suit, fear of losing the power she had used like a knife. Okafor stood, trying to keep dignity. You will regret this, she said to Tund. Tund didn't respond. Security opened the door. Okafor walked out with her head high, but her steps were faster than she wanted them to be. When the door closed, the room exhaled. Zainab's father finally spoke, voice broken but steady. So my daughter was going to be destroyed, because people wanted money. Tund turned to him. Yes, sir. Zainab's father shook his head slowly, eyes glossy. We are not rich. We don't know anybody. We just wanted her to work. Bimp's shoulders began to shake. She tried to hold herself together, but tears slid down anyway. Suleiman. I didn't want to harm her, she whispered. I thought I was helping. Zainab watched her stepmother carefully. A part of her wanted to spit out every bitter memory. The insults. The small humiliations at home. The way Bimp always treated Zainab's dreams like a nuisance. But Tund's earlier instructions stayed in her mind. Simple sentences. Facts. No revenge. Zainab spoke quietly. Auntie Bimp, you didn't create that file. But you fed the lie. Bimp flinched as if the words were physical. Zainab continued, voice steady. You were ready to borrow money and hide it from Daddy. You were ready to negotiate my name like it was fabric in the market. Her father turned toward Bimp, pain and anger mixing. Why didn't you tell me? Bimp wiped her cheeks quickly, pride still fighting. Because you would have said leave it. And you know how these big offices work. If you don't push. Zainab cut in gently, but firmly. Pushing is not the same as paying criminals. Silence fell again, but this time it wasn't tense. It was clean. Tund leaned forward slightly. Zainab, he said, your interview remains valid. Your file is cleared. You will be assessed fairly. Zainab's heart thudded. Assessed fairly? Yes, Tund said. But I need to be clear. I'm not offering you a role because of what you did under the bridge. I'm offering you what you earned, a fair process. If you pass, you get the job. If you don't, you don't. Either way, nobody will sell your name. Zainab felt her throat tighten. She nodded slowly. Thank you. Kudarat added, we will also contact the other candidates affected by this ring. Their cases will be reviewed. Zainab's eyes widened. Other candidates will get a chance? Tund nodded. Yes. Zainab's chest rose in a shaky breath. The justice wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was correct. It was the kind that repaired more than one life. Then Tund turned to Bimp. His voice was calm but firm. Madam Ajayi, you will also speak to our legal team. We need a full statement. You were targeted, but you also participated. Bimp nodded quickly, eyes down. I will cooperate. Zainab's father looked at Tund with something like gratitude, but also shame. Sir, thank you. I don't even know how to. Tund lifted a hand slightly. Sir, your daughter did something for a stranger without expecting a return. That says something about your home. Hold on to that. Zainab's father's eyes filled again. He nodded, unable to speak. A short while later, the meeting ended. Legal escorted Chica out. Kudarat stepped out to arrange next steps. The room emptied until it was just Zainab, her father, and Bimp. For the first time, they sat together in silence without shouting. Zainab's father finally spoke, voice low. Zainab, you didn't tell me it was this hard for you. Zainab looked at him, the tears she had been holding finally rising. I didn't want to worry you. He nodded slowly. You already worry me by existing. That's what fathers do. Bimp shifted uncomfortably. Zainab, she began. Zainab turned to her. Auntie Bimp. Bimp swallowed. I'm sorry. The apology didn't erase years. It didn't magically soften everything. But it was a start. And starts mattered. Zainab's voice stayed calm. If you want to help me with truth. No more secret calls. No more shouting that you settled anything. Let my work speak. Bimp nodded quickly, wiping her face. I will. Later, in the elevator down, Zainab stood alone for a moment, looking at her reflection in the mirrored wall. She looked the same. Same blouse. Same worn flats. Same small folder. But something inside her had changed. Not because a billionaire noticed her. Because she saw what fear could make people do. She saw how easily a name could be stained. And she learned that dignity wasn't something people gave you. It was something you held, even when your hands were shaking. When she stepped back into the interview waiting area, Sul was still at his post. He looked at her once and gave a small nod, approval without words. Zainab sat down, breathed slowly, and waited for her second interview, this time a real one. And somewhere in the building, the ring that had been feeding on desperate families was finally being pulled into the light. Zainab walked back into the waiting area, not as a victim, but as someone who refused to let criminals sell her name again. What lesson did this story teach you about kindness, pride, and quiet boundaries? If you reach the end, become a subscriber, because more stories like this are coming, where one small decision flips everything. Thanks for watching.